everyone, and I thank you so much for joining me here in my garden paradise for yet another episode of Orchid Adventures with me, Maria Young. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on this Vanda orchid that I have right here, a huge specimen, and also some of my other projects that I've had and how they're doing. So definitely an update on some of my mini projects at hand. Okay, so let's first start out by talking about my Vanda right here. Now this Vanda stands at almost 3 feet tall. Yeah, she's a pretty big girl. But as you can see, she has gotten pretty top heavy as well with all that weight. And the normal thing about Vanda orchids is as they get older, they will begin to lose their leaves at the bottom. So she's becoming a little bit unsightly, as you can see. And also, she hasn't been in the absolute best condition, and also especially in her appearance. Now that is not her fault at all, guys. I hold complete ownership to that because I did not give her everything that she needed, and to be honest with you, I just have not been the good caregiver to her. Okay, so I've had this Vanda orchid for, I would say, about 3 years now. And when I did purchase her, she was already at a pretty good size and definitely in the blooming stages. Now, the problem was I was not giving her the proper requirements, and I didn't even know that some Vandas can actually bloom about 3 times within 1 year's time. So I've had her for about like 3 years, and to be honest with you, she's only bloomed 1 time. Well, let's get a closer look on her and I'll show you why she hasn't been in the best condition or have had enough energy to give off those blooms. So when I first received her, folks, I just simply did not know enough about the Vanda species and what their requirements were. So definitely, as you can see, she has developed some pretty unsightly things on her leaves. And as you can see, she just doesn't seem to be as healthy as she needs to be. Now, at the very bottom, what I did is because I knew I just did not have a lifestyle that I could mist her throughout the day or give her her daily mistings, I decided to go ahead and put the sphagnum moss in here and just do it like that, where I can go ahead and spray her down whenever I needed to, and that would hold some moisture. Problem was is I compacted this pretty tight, and then on top of that I didn't give her the watering that she needed. So what happened is this medium dried out, and I believe it made it to where her roots became really hot. So definitely wasn't a good thing for her at all. Now, another thing that I did with her is I really just left her outdoors even through the winter season. So she was in some pretty cold climate, and I didn't shelter her or protect her from the cold. So again, folks, I mean, it's really not her fault at all that she's in the condition that she is. So right now, you know what? I am committing today that I am going to take as best care of her as possible, and my goal is to really try to get her at 100% by the end of this year. Because if I don't, guys, I am going to have to contemplate propagation. That may be my only choice to rejuvenate her and perhaps get some lovely plants while I'm doing it. Okay, so let's talk about propagation and how to propagate the Vanda orchid, which is really pretty simple. You just have to basically keep an eye on how things are going and definitely treat her with love and care afterwards. Okay, so the first thing to propagation is deciding where you want to cut her at. And what you're going to basically have to do is make sure all of your cutting equipment that you will be using is sanitized, because you have to understand that when you cut her, she is going to be open and susceptible to rot, fungus, and also diseases. And 2 of the deciding factors that will indeed let you know where it is appropriate to cut her at is that you have to make sure that there is at least 2 root growth wherever you decide to cut her at. So as you can see, she is not in the condition to do that. What normally would happen, say for instance you had 2 roots extending out from here, then this would be the proper place that you could cut it at. So you would cut it below the roots. So in this case, I would actually probably cut it right here. Now another thing that you have to make sure that the segment has, wherever you decide to cut, is that the segment has at least 3, 1, 2, 3, or 5 leaves, 4, 5. So you could either cut it this size or a little bit smaller, that size. So say for instance she had roots throughout her whole stem. I would say I more than likely would be able to get maybe about 4 plants out of this. And when you cut her, what's going to happen, of course, it's going to be shorter, say for instance this short. And what more than likely is going to happen is, if the conditions are good, she is more than likely going to start producing keikis right at the bottom. Now, if you were to cut it again, and you have 2 cuttings, then the keikis could actually, keikis, let me make sure I pronounce that right, but the keikis could actually come from the top where you cut it, or at the bottom as well. So that's basically what you're hoping for, is that these keikis will grow and that you will have individual plants from each one of the segments. Okay, so now what do you do once you've cut all of the segments? Well now folks, this is where it gets really tricky, because some people say to do it like this and some people say to do it like that. So this is where you gain your personal intuition and you decide for yourself what you want to do. Okay, so there are 2 ways they say to do this. Right after you've cut it, they say you can either put it right into a container and then begin to treat it just like normal, just like it was a regular plant, and begin to mist it on a daily basis. Okay, so that's one way. Now the other way is that you would take the cuttings and you would actually put it in a drier area, and you would not water at all by any means for about 20 days. And the only time you would water is if it got too sickly and it just really seemed like it was in fatal condition. That's the only time you would water, and you would only water on the leaf, maybe the stem area, but never on the root area. Okay, so that's the other way. One way is to water, treat as normal, and the other way is to put it in a dry area and do not water. Okay, now, that's your personal decision on what you want to do. My personal belief is, because I have done the cutting process on cactus plants and some succulents and also the plumerias, I understand the reason why they say not to water them for about like 2 weeks, because it is understood that when you cut the plant, that they are open and susceptible to either rot or fungus or other diseases to really invade and intrude that plant and really have a better chance of getting it really sick. And that is one of the main reasons why they say to let it dry out, let it heal, let it recover and seal up, so that when you do put it in its medium, that it will not have that chance of rotting at all. So that's what happens with cactuses and other succulents and even other plants. They just tell you to hold off, let it dry, let it recover. So I can understand that process, and to be honest with you, that's probably what I would do in my propagation method. Well, okay, folks, there you have it with the Vanda orchid and how to propagate. Like I said, I'm going to see what's going to happen at the end of the year, and I'll keep you updated with this lovely Vanda. Even though she does not have the best of appearance, folks, She is very, very strong, and I can at least respect her for that, because for all that she's been through, oh my gosh, she indeed is a fighter. And just for that, she deserves to be treated a whole lot better. So with my apologies and with my commitment, I am going to do everything that I can for her. Okay folks, so these are my 3 orchids in a bag. And I was actually contemplating on whether or not I should mount this somewhere onto my tree or other form of wood that I could mount it to. But folks, you know what? I decided not to. I was just a little bit intimidated by the whole fact that, you know, they are still, you know, at a rather small size. They're not at a point that I can really trust them to be sturdy enough to attach onto a tree and definitely have enough strength to sustain themselves in case it got too hot or they didn't get enough watering. And I just think that they're at a weakened state right now. So I would much rather grow them to a bigger size, have them at least blossom for me before I begin to do that. I mean, I have to be more or less rest assured that they are okay, fine, and dandy and ready to go. And I just don't think they are right now. So as you guys can see, I went ahead and repotted them into a bigger pot because of course those 4-inch pots were not sufficient for them, and they just kept toppling over here, there, and everywhere. So I put them in these containers. Of course, I'm going to be repotting them probably at the end of this year, because I definitely, you know, I'm thinking of doing some things with these. But as of right now, this is where they're going to stay. And what I've used is what I recommend and use for my orchids is actually, of course, that bark material. It has some coal, some perlite, and I always add a little bit of sphagnum moss to it too, just to kind of hold a little bit of that moisture, because you guys know that I am in Florida and we get some pretty excruciating heat. So definitely need whatever help we can get to protect ourselves from the heat. So that's why that is in there. Now this is my miracle baby plant, this dendrobium that had about, I think it was like 6 little dendrobium babies growing from a clipping. I repotted her, I think it was about a week ago, and as you guys can see, she is fine and dandy. She is doing well. Aw, say hello. Hello. Okay guys, now I know you guys can remember him, right? He's the little critter that we went ahead and did a propagation and a repotting on him. And definitely, he is bouncing back quite well, and I'm just so very, very excited at how well he's doing. Now, as you guys know, this is the Maxillaria tenafolia, also known as the coconut orchid, because of the strong, intoxicating coconut fragrance that this exotic plant exudes. So I am very, very excited. I already am fully in love with him, but I can only imagine when he begins to bloom his infamous blossoms. Oh man, I'm just going to be over the top in love with this guy. Now folks, I do have to admit, I got a little bit worried about this little fella. I mean, I started noticing that there was a slight difference in the color of the pseudobulbs that were wrinkled, and I started to panic. I actually thought that perhaps it was dying out, or, you know, I just didn't believe that it had enough strength yet for me to go ahead and cut the pseudobulbs, cut it all apart, and you know, be rough with it and tear its roots up and then shove it in the ground. And yeah, I felt a bit guilty because I thought that perhaps he was going to take the turn for the worst. But folks, I have to say that is not the case at all. I think it's just because I put him outside and I let him get some sun. And of course, he's got to kind of get acclimated to receiving the light again. So I think that's all it was, because if you take a look, because I definitely want to give you guys a close-up look on these pseudobulbs that were really, really wrinkled at one time. Can you guys see how well it's doing? I mean, it's still wrinkled slightly, but if you guys take a look at the other videos that I showed you, I mean, it's quite a difference. And especially if you guys seen this when I first got it, oh my gosh. These wrinkled bulbs were so dried out that it was almost as thin as paper, guys. I mean, it just really looked a horrible sight. So to see them doing this well, repotted, and just looking like it's just ready to rock and roll, I'm just so happy, guys. Alright, well that is about it for now. I just definitely wanted to update you on what's been going on with all of my projects. So I thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I ask you to stay tuned for more. And of course, if you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs way up. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, please be sure to subscribe. And I appreciate whatever comment or feedback or suggestions you have. You guys know that I definitely love to hear from you guys. So definitely keep in touch and stay tuned for more. This has been Maria Young, reporting live in my garden paradise, saying to you, be well and happy orchid collecting, everyone. Okay, Vanda. Say bye-bye.